Okay, so welcome to Onshape with Kevin, and I just want to go over what we're going to do today. Hopefully everybody has gotten their Onshape account started up, and for those of you who are watching this on video, here are the instructions. You can pause the video and go do this now. So create yourself an account. It usually takes 3 or 4 minutes, and then go ahead and sign up for OSK. You're going to want a 3-button mouse, a mouse like this, something like that. If you don't have that, you're going to find doing CAD very frustrating because it's hard to do like on a trackpad or on one single button mouse. You're going to use the left mouse button, the right mouse button, the scroll wheel, and the button on the scroll wheel a lot. That's how you control this program. So if you don't have one, beg, borrow, steal. They're really cheap on Amazon. It's only like $6 on Amazon. They work great. So there you go. I'm going to do a quick demo of what Onshape can do for you and for your team. Then we're going to jump right into trying to assemble something just real quick. And then we're going to draw something and make a part and just put it into our assembly. And then I'm going to give you a tour of the online tutorials. So that's sort of the plan. It turns out that Onshape has really good tutorials if you know where to start and where to find them. And that's my goal for this. The intricacies of running a CAD program, the professionals have developed materials for this. Their materials are really good, so there's no sense in me trying to regurgitate that whole thing. So my goal here is to kind of get you started and aimed at the tutorial stuff that you can do at your own pace. So that's kind of where we're headed. And Mia has made it. Yay, Mia. All right. Yay, we got a reaction. So she's connecting to audio. Very exciting. I hope. Okay, so moving on. There she is. So Mia.
Yes. Hello.
How are you?
Pretty good.
All right. Go create an Onshape account. Go to onshape.com and go do create a student account.
Okay.
And I'm going to let you do that in the background, and I'm going to continue on with the others. And
okay.
Then when you're done with that, when you get that set up, where's the chat? There we go. I will post this into chat one more time. There's a link in the chat that you're going to put the email address that you signed up with and stuff in the chat.
Okay.
You'll figure it out. You're smart.
All right.
Okay. So let's go look at Onshape. So I'm going to just start from nowhere. I'm just going to go to onshape.com, and there it is. And then you would click up here to log in. Turns out I'm logged in another window, so I don't have to type in my password and stuff. So when you actually open Onshape, for those of you who have just created accounts, it's going to ask you to set your default units. You can just use inches if that works for you. You can use metric. I'll show you how to change the units in your documents. It's super duper easy. And then it's going to ask you for what mouse defaults you want to use. Use the default Onshape. That way you and I are using the same ones. Okay. I think that's pretty much all it's going to ask you. I'm going to open up a robot. This is a robot that my team built a couple of years ago. And it's just a nice little robot just to show you what is going on. Oh, and I guess I left it in a weird state. So let me load the actual robot. And the loveliness of this particular robot is that we built this. We started in September. We did a full CAD model, and it took months, because everybody was new to CAD and new to building things. But this was done in 2020, 2021, the year of COVID. We couldn't meet in person. So this was a great way for us to all learn how to do CAD. And so my entire team got really good at CADing stuff. And so this CAD model is very complete. it is, I can like grab this arm and move it, right? So it operates, it's fully functional. You know, the wheels can be turned and stuff, and mechanisms can be exercised and moved up and down. The nice thing is that as we were designing this robot, we were able to put it together and assemble it virtually because we couldn't meet in person. And it turns out that we started this project sometime in September. We weren't allowed to meet in person until April 2nd of 2020. That's when the schools district said, okay, you may now meet with students. Yay. And everybody came to my house on April 2nd, and we had this robot assembled and working on April 4th. 2 days later. We got it programmed on April 5th, and we actually competed with it on April 6th, and it did quite nicely. And so the beauty of having worked all this stuff out in CAD is all the measurements worked, all the dimensions worked. You can, if I zoom in here, you can see that it has 3D printed parts. It has machined parts that were done on a CNC machine. It has parts that we purchased, like these wheels and these compliant wheels and stuff. And so, but the entire assembly was test fit and tried in advance. And so we were able to literally manufacture this thing very, very, very quickly, and it worked out super well. So highly recommend this as a good way for your team to, a good set of skills for your team to develop. The salient points are, even if you're starting with a go build a kit, if you ever plan on 3D printing any parts, having a good CAD model will allow you to make those parts and make them fit, right? So the key to good CAD stuff is trying to be as accurate and complete as you can. So I'm going to rotate this part. I'm doing that by holding down the right mouse button, and then I'm going to actually pan it up a little bit. So I'm going to click the center wheel mouse button and move it up. So that, again, I'm just explaining to you that those mouse things are important. You're going to be running this program in just a few minutes, so you'll get to try all that stuff. But I wanted to point out that, you know, if nothing else, my cardinal rule is that you must put in all of the screws and fasteners, right? So you can see we've got all of the screws are in these parts. And it is the single most important thing you can do with a CAD program, because oftentimes you will find that the tolerance between things you need to be careful with, because otherwise this screw could be hitting this plate, right? It isn't in this model, but it actually was when we first started. And you'll find that there are places that you have to take into consideration. Can I get at the screw, right? Like, for example, this motor back here is actually assembled with a screw that's hiding behind this wheel. So we had to, this gave us the opportunity to go, well, that's a design decision for us to make. In order to take the motor off, we have to take the whole rest of the robot apart, right? And so you get to find out things like that. And the biggest ones are when the screws interfere with parts moving or sliding and that sort of stuff. So, all right. Anyway, so that is kind of, this is a really, really well done CAD model for our first team. I've been doing this a long time. This one's 100% complete, and actually, there it is. It has a black top hat thing instead, but I mean, this is a 100%. Everything is there. All of the screws are there. All of the parts are there. If we need to remanufacture something, it's easy. We just download the part and 3D print it or have it milled. So that's the goal for you, is to be able to come up with a good representation. The beauty is everybody that's working on this robot right here was working from a common plan. We were all building the same robot, and it made it go together and work really, really well. So that's sort of the gold standard there. Now, there are you're allowed to break things into sub-assemblies, which is really quite nice. So, for example, if I go over here and look at the wobble arm assembly, so there's the arm that is on there. And again, these parts are all movable, right? So you can test their fit and stuff. And then we also have like the ring elevator. Where is it? There it is. So the whole thing that actually sucks the rings off the ground and slides them up through this mechanism, right? And so we had students working on their submodules independently, and then at some point we ended up assembling them all, and everything fits. And because you can try everything, and if something doesn't fit, we can have a little discussion about, does the screw need to move, or what do we need to do? So there you go. That's what you're headed for, is to being able to do this. Okay. Are we good? Thumbs up if we're good. Mia, how'd you do? Were you able to get the an account created?
Almost. I had to like switch to my phone, and it was really complicated because the admin won't let me do Zoom on the computer. So
Roger that.
we're
Okay,
working.
we're working on it. It's all good. All right. Hey, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a really cool thing. Somebody on your team, usually a mentor does this, but I have to do this for all of you anyway. Hey, Mia, let me know when you, well, actually, never mind. I'll keep going. So under my account, I can come over here and I can see all of the teams that I belong to. Here's all the teams that I belong to. And one of them is, I'm the admin of, like this one right here. So I'm the admin of OSK. And here's a bunch of people that are in that. And all these folks were in the class last night. So now I need to go and find, the form. Actually, are you? Let's see, hang on a sec. I got to log into this thing. I forgot to do that beforehand. I apologize about that. I need docs. 365. And I'm not going to say my password again. I did that on a meeting once. Yeah, it was only slightly embarrassing. It's all good. There you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all of you nice folks. We had 9 last night, so I should have. There it is. And 9. Blake was last night, so there's all of you guys. Sweet Core, Mia, Arjun. All right, good. So I'm just going to add all of you as members. Okay, so what I just did is I added all of you as members to this group, and now you'll be able to see things that were shared with the OSK group, which we're going to go look at right now. So if I go back to Onshape, and over here on the left of Onshape, so you should go ahead and open up your Onshape account and log in. And you can do that in the background if you'd like. And you should end up with something that looks like this on the left. I have tons of folders in here that you don't have yet. That's okay. You may have actually ended up with an OSK library and an OSK, because if I come over and I click on Teams and I press on OSK, these are all of the files that have been shared with the OSK team. And there are 2 folders, OSK. And so what I would like you to do is go click in OSK, and you'll find a whole list of other people. Okay. So what exists are, there are documents and there are folders. In Onshape, a document contains all the CAD stuff, and folders are just a nice, easy way to think about how to organize stuff. Lots and lots of designs are all done in a single document, because a single document can contain a whole bunch of stuff in it as well. If you don't mind, if you are in Onshape OSK, you're going to create your first document. So come up to Create and Document, and you can just use your name. A name, first initial of your last name is fine. I'm going to use Kevin R.O. And I'm going to do that, and it will bring up a window that looks just like this. Go ahead and try that. So try Create Document, your name, first initial of your last name, I'm going to set this over here so I can keep an eye on things. All right. All right. So we got Ben, Tom, Arjun, Cora. How are you doing?
Almost there.
Almost there. Sounds
Yeah.
great.
My internet's just being slow, so it's loading.
No worries. I still like you. Okay, so all right, so what you're looking at here is the main interface to a document. And you can see down at the bottom, there's a thing called a part studio, and there's a thing called an assembly. And the reasons for those two things, part studios is where you're doing drawing and drafting and creating of parts. And an assembly is where you're assembling parts, either from things in your part studio, other documents somewhere in your realm. And they also have this stuff called standard content. So assemble stuff, put it together, make it do stuff. Part studios are where you actually draw stuff. Okay. And so that is, those are really sort of the two basic things. Okay. I don't want to run off on Mia. Mia, how you doing there, pal?
I'm trying to figure stuff out.
Nice.
I don't know for sure.
Okay. So did you so do you think you were able to log into Onshape?
Yes, I
Sweet.
think so. I see an OSK thing, and then Robbie S is there.
Okay.
And then I see Cora in the OSK thing, so I think I'm in the right place.
So you are looking at let's see, my Onshape, and if I go to my teams and click on OSK, you're seeing something that looks like this.
Yes.
Okay, so I would like you to click on the OSK folder.
Okay.
And now you should have something that looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and you're going to do a create document. Create up there, document, and just put in Mia S.
All right. And then it's loading.
All right, sounds good. I'll refresh this, and I'm assuming I'm going to see you up at the top. There you are. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, everybody's here. I'm liking it. Okay, so again, you can actually add things to this document. This document can hold PDFs and Excel spreadsheets and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so there's a plus sign way down here at the bottom that allows you to create new part studios and assemblies. We won't deal with variable studios at the moment. You can create drawings. There's a bunch of other stuff. The tutorials are going to teach you all about that. I'm not going to go terribly deep into any of that. We're just going to play around with assemblies and part studios. We're actually going to start with an assembly. So, so if you've got the part studio, you'll see up here it says sketch, and there's extrude. It's up here on the top bar. And this is all having to do with part studios. That's what all these tools are used in. I'm now going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to click on assembly. And when I click on it, I'm going to watch that menu bar change up there. And you can see now it's got insert and a thing called a meat connector and a bunch of things that have to do with working with assemblies. On the left-hand side, you can see where it says instances, and you can see it has assemblies and mates. And assembly one is the sort of this thing that you're assembling. And you'll eventually end up listing out a whole bunch of parts over here. Okay. And so this is a tree of all the parts that you're going to do. So we're going to get started right away, and we're going to insert some parts. So what I'd like you to do is up in the upper left, find insert and click it. You'll get a little dialogue, looks like that. Go ahead and do that now. Okay. So you see this little form. It's got current document, other documents, and standard content. Our current document, it's saying that no part studios are available. Well, we haven't created anything yet, so our part studio is empty, nothing to insert. What we're going to do though is we're going to go to other documents, and you're going to end up seeing, oh, it should end up probably looking like this for you. Some of the stuff down here at the bottom is unique to my directory structure, but it'll say my Onshape recently opened, created by me, that sort of thing. And you'll see that it has the teams that you belong to, and one of them is OSK. So I'm going to click on OSK, and you'll find OSK library and that OSK directory that we're in. I want you to click on the library, and I unfortunately named the library file OSK library as well. So you'll sorry about that, but under OSK library, you're going to click on OSK library one more time, and you should end up with something that looks like this. It'll have like 5-6 parts in it. Does anybody not have this? Okay, so we're good. All right. Hey, just so if I ever say the word spin down, see this greater than? That's called a spin down control. And if you click on the spin down, it'll show you what's under it. It turns out that this library has these 6 parts in it. It actually has one other part, which is a motor. And so if you can't find what you're looking for, see this little composite part thing? You might want to turn that on. That'll allow composite parts, because there's actually also a motor in there, right? So, and if I clicked on assemblies on this form, it says Part Studios. I could also click on assemblies to find things, and but I'm not going to bother with that right now. In fact, I didn't expect to find anything in there. Somebody created something in there, probably me. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of these box beams, of these U channels. So we're going to click on the one that says 216, like that. And you can see that it popped up there, and I'm now using my mouse, and I'm going to set it somewhere and left click it, and that will insert it. And now if I use my scroll wheel, I can zoom out just a little bit, and now go to the 312 part. And we are going to insert one of the 312 parts. Yeah, I'll put it right there. And then we're going to insert the 096, the 048-0096 part. We're going to take one of those and put it over here. Okay. So there, we just inserted 3 parts. Okay. Good. All right. Then I hit the green check mark on that thing, and you should have something that looks like this. Anybody need help? Thumbs up if you're there. Ananya, you have just arrived. You've done some of this before. You might figure out where we're headed. All right.
I'm just listening in for now.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Hey, team. So we've inserted our first 3 parts, and now we're going to play around with the mouse a little bit. So what I'd like you to do is, if you hold down your right mouse button and then start moving the mouse, you'll see that you can rotate all of these parts. So it's basically rotating your view in space. That's the right mouse button. Okay, cool. I'm going to let up on it. The the center wheel, if I roll it, the center wheel, it will zoom in and it will zoom out. Try that. Okay. If I hold down the scroll wheel and then move the mouse, I can pan everything. It'll keep the same rotation and zoom, but it'll just allow me to move things. So for example, if I was wanting to scroll in up here, I need to move that down a little bit, and I can scroll in like that, right? And I can move it over. So that's me pressing that center scroll wheel. And you're going to find that you'll get good motor memory on this of right rotates, scroll wheel zooms, Holding down the scroll wheel allows you to move things around. Okay, everybody's good with that? The left mouse button allows you to select things. So I am going to come up to this little plate up here, and I'm going to left click it. Okay, and you can see that fancy little control here. We'll talk about that here in just a sec. But if you look at my mouse, you can see that it has a little number 1 next to the mouse. It tells me I've selected one item. And actually, it's highlighted the thing that I've inserted over in the instances tab, because now I'm going to go over here and focus on this left tab over here. And you see these are the 3 parts that we've inserted. And it turns out that you can select multiple things over here. So now I've selected all 3 things. They've all turned gold. If I want to unselect everything, then you go find a nice piece of white real estate on the screen and you just click on nothing and they should deselect everything. Try that. Select 3 things, come over here to white space and then hit the left mouse button and it'll unselect it. Okay. And so that's kind of the main things that you end up doing with the mouse is selecting things. Selecting things. There we go. And rotating, panning, zooming. Okay. Now, if you sometimes when you select something, you can actually hover over it and click the right mouse button once, and you'll get a context menu. And these are things that you can do to it. So I'm not holding the mouse button down. I just clicked it once, and I can do this with all of these things. For example, to make your life a little bit easier, let's have you click on nothing. So you deselect everything. Okay. And I want you to click once on the center part, this guy, or the short one. Right click it once, just click and let go, and click the fix word. What fix is going to do is it's going to tell the program, don't let this part move for now. We can unfix it later. And you can see up here in the instances, it got a fixed label on it. All right. So what we're going to do is, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take this big part here, and I'd like to form an L shape, like we're going to build a robot base. And so one of the things that I can do is, you can see I've unclicked everything. I've clicked just on the long one, and we're going to mess around with this position control over here. That you can see the axes here. And I'm sorry, it doesn't let me zoom in on that. Well, maybe actually if I hit Control+, does it get bigger? It kind of gets bigger. All right. That's a little bigger. It might be getting a little bit fuzzy because I just made I over zoomed my screen. You can see it has, I have the ability to grab this arrow and I can slide the part or offset the part just in that direction. Okay. I can select this guy, do the same thing in another direction. I can select this guy and grab that arrow and do it in that direction. And it's showing you how far I've moved it. And it's not really useful for us right now, the actual dimension. The other thing you can do is you can highlight this thing and grab one of the square boxes, and that will allow me to move it kind of almost anywhere. So go ahead and try that. Try moving that thing around by just selecting it, and try dragging it around just a little bit. You don't need to drag it too far. Okay. Now another, so hopefully everybody got to do that. Another thing that exists is this viewing cube, and this will allow you to select. There are 3 planes. There's top, front, and right, and those are standard planes. There's also left, back, and bottom. And it turns out if I was to turn this guy, keep going, you can see there's back, there's bottom. So it's a cube, and I can actually select planar views, so views that line up with that by just clicking that cube. So there's a top view, and I can get the back view. I can turn it this way and get the left view. I'm using this thing to sort of click it, the front view, right? So what I really want is actually the top view. And so there's the top. So there I've got a top view. See if you can get a top view. Hopefully you can. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I've clicked off and I've unselected everything, and we're going to click on the big long part and see it gave us that movement control. This arc out here allows me to rotate things, and it'll tell me how far I'm rotating it. I want to rotate that guy 90 degrees. Okay. And I've done that. And then I'm going to left click out in the middle and left click out in the middle, and there it rotated that part 90 degrees. And that's going to help me position my part. Okay. Try that. Everybody good? Everybody got that? Thumbs up on your reactions if you can. How you doing, Corey? You got it?
Yeah, I got it. My Zoom thing just went on full screen.
No worries. Okay. So now I'm going to right click a little bit and see, I've unselected everything. I'm going to select just this plate over here. And I would like to rotate it. So I'm moving with I'm dragging with my right mouse button, even though that thing is there. And I would like to rotate around this axis 90 degrees. Okay. And then I'm going to unselect everything. So there it stayed rotated, right? I'm going to look at it from the front, and I'm actually going to move this plate. I can just grab this plate and drag it up kind of like that. Try that. All right. And then I'm going to roll it a bit, and I'm going to look at it from the top, and I'm just going to take this part and sort of drag it up here. And you do this a lot as you're trying to get everything sort of like pre-positioned. So because we're actually going to attach this plate to this bottom part down here. And then we're going to also attach it up here. So you can see that. And that's me just rotating things around. How are we doing? Everybody good? Thumbs up if you're good. Got something that sort of looks like this? All right. Now what we want to do is we want to assemble this thing. And so there are these assembly mates. So in assembly, there's a bunch of mates up here, and they start from fastened mate, and they have a revolute mate and stuff. And actually, if you just hover over one of these and let it sit for a second, it'll bring up and try and tell you what it's going to do. And you can do a revolute mate, which tells you that it will fix the two parts together, and it will allow it to rotate around the z-axis. And if I look over here at the axes, the z-axis is the blue one. So if I rotate this a little bit, it'll allow this part to rotate around that axis. You'll see this in just a sec. And there's a bunch of them up here, and you'll get to know these real well. So what we're going to do is we are actually going to do a revolute mate. This mate here. I'm going to click that, and it'll bring up this little dialog box. Looks like that. Okay. All of the dialog boxes in Onshape sort of put up a little blue thing. That's the thing that you're currently filling in. And so it's asking for connectors. What the hell is that? What's a connector? All right. It turns out that Onshape is really cool in this way, is that you can use lots and lots of different things on a drawing as a connector. So we're going to end up connecting this hole here. So we want to connect this hole to this hole, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by coming down here. And as I hover over this plate, you can see all of those little pucks, we'll call them. They're actually little connector indicators. And there's tons of them on here. And so you usually find them like at corners, at vertices. You oftentimes find them at midpoints. So there's a line here that forms that edge, and there's a midpoint out there. So there's a connector, and there's connectors here. And you can see there's tons of them on here. what I'm looking for is I would like to connect this hole right here, okay? So as I hover over this and I get close to this circle, you can see it's added a mate connector. It's inferring where we want it to be. And if I'm hovering just over the edge of the circle, it's selected the center, and you can see that the z-axis is pointing up. And that's actually what we want, is that one. So if it looks like this, I can actually just click that, and you can see that it added a mate connector on this part, and that's the connector that we're using right there. Okay, everybody got that? I'm now going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to press my right mouse button and roll this thing so I have access to the bottom of this guy. And I can zoom in a little bit, and you can see it's allowing me to select. If I hover just over that circle, it's got another connector with the z-axis going the other way, which means that it's a mating connector. Okay. Now, if you're having troubles actually getting that one thing, here's a trick for you. It turns out that almost all mates have 3 incarnations, especially when they're cylinders like this. I'm going to rotate mine just a little bit more so it's obvious. If I hover over this, you can see that 3 mates have appeared. There's 1, 2, and 3. See those 3? They're all related to that same hole. Okay, so I could mate at the bottom of the hole, the middle of the hole, or the top of the hole. Okay, and there are useful reasons for doing that. Now, so what I did to make that happen is I hovered over the plate, and I got close, right? But I can then hold down the shift key and I'm sorry, I'm hovering over this hole, the side of the hole, hold down the shift key and it'll limit it to just mates associated with that hole. If I lift up on it, and it will allow you to navigate around and find stuff. Okay, so what we want then is to highlight that mate right there. I'm going to click it, and my thing disappeared. Okay, so I'm going to scroll out a little bit, and I'm going to rotate back up, and you can see what it did is it moves, it moved the part into position for us. And that's kind of what we want. And I can hit the solve button, and it will position things where I wanted it. Okay, and then I can hit the green check mark, and I now have that mated connector. Okay, and you can see over here, it says Revolute 1 is happy. Does everybody have a happy Revolute 1? Who needs help? Usually this doesn't go well for at least one person.
I have, like, when I revolved it, it went inside of the short piece and the long piece, like it went all the way down into them.
Okay. So you're telling me that you have something that looks a little bit like this?
Yes.
Okay. So sometimes that happens. It depends on and when that happens, you can just if you can double click on that mate if you need to reopen it, and try hitting this flip primary axis button. And what that'll do is it will flip the axis, and usually that'll cause the part to go back up on top. Try that. Did that work?
Yes, it did.
It did, yeah. And that's one of those things you get used to. Yeah, usually when something has buried itself into another part, you need to flip the axis. That's sort of, it's super common. No worries. So there you go. And I can hit the green check mark, and you should have something that looks kind of like that.
All right.
We just did a Revolute mate team. So that means that it is fixed. It has taken the 2 pucks, those 2 mate connectors, and connected them together, but they will still revolve. And so if I grab this plate, oh, by the way, make sure that the first part that we inserted, that's this guy here, has the little fixed mark. If it doesn't, click on this guy, right click it, and make sure that it says fix. Right, so that little icon should be there. And then you'll find that you can actually rotate this part because it's a Revolute mate. Okay. Now you have some options here. you can, if you want, decide that, hey, that all lined up really nicely. I could actually edit this revolute mate. And you can change the type of mate it is. There's a little top drop down here. And I could actually do a fastened mate. Okay. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to suggest that you do it as well. So you're going to change your number one mate to be fastened and hit OK. And now you'll find that you are unable to move this thing. I can grab it and it won't move. It's fastened, it's fixed. Yay. All right. Now what we want to do is we're kind of looking to get this part. Ideally, we'd like this part to get all lined up nice and perfect with that, right? And so we could, in theory, I think, do another fastened mate. So I can do another fastened mate, and we'll pick this guy and the underside of this guy. Whoop. All right, so I want that one. All right, and I'm going to rotate this up, and you can see that if I hit the solve button, it will make sure everything moves into position. And I can come over here and it looks right. It looks like all the holes are lining up. And I should be able to hit the green check mark. And now I have a second fastened mate. And I'm going to hit the fastened 3 over here. I'm just going to close that because I'm done with fastens at the moment. Okay. So you can see we just did our first assembly. You have half a robot base going here. Not bad. Okay. So these are the sorts of skills that you're going to get really good at when you do these tutorials. But I just wanted to give you a sense of what it was that you're going to be learning when you do all this tutorial stuff. So these are now fastened, they don't move. And we're going to try inserting a couple more things. Wouldn't it be nice to actually bolt this together? And this has a ton of bolt holes, but I think it seems to me if we were to put like 4 screws, one here and here at the end, and one here and here, that would probably hold it quite nicely. And actually, we're going to put screws on this side as well. So we're about to insert 8 screws. I'm going to unzoom a little bit so it probably looks cleaner because I don't need to show. There we go. All right, we're going to do another insert. First of all, is everybody caught up? Anybody behind? Give me a thumbs up if you're caught up. Everybody's looking good. All right, so we're going to do an insert, and instead of other documents, we're going to go to something called shared content and standard content. And this is where you find nuts and bolts and screws. It's kind of, they have a very limited set of things. And this is a little form that you fill out, and it's going to remember stuff. So it's smart and tries to remember what it is that you use commonly. But we're going to start at the top. So so you kind of fill this form out from the top to the bottom. So we can either use ANSI inch, and if so, like this is a 1/4 inch bolt, okay. But turns out that the parts that we're using are actually metric, and so we're going to actually select ISO, International Standards Organization, and that is equivalent to saying metric. Okay, we can select bolts and screws, nuts, and a bunch of other stuff. We're going to go with bolts and screws for now. We would like to use, we're going to use what are called socket head screws. Yay. That's just what we're going to use. Okay. And we can actually select socket head shoulder screw. Okay. And so oh, I apologize. Hex socket head cap screw is what I meant to say. There we go. Hex socket head cap screw. Cool. And then I need to know what size. Well, I could use this little control here and select a hole. It'll tell me how big it is. And so it'll select M3 for me. That is, it got it wrong. Sorry about that. I don't know why I got it wrong. We actually want to use M4s. So these are all the metric sizes, screw sizes. If you see an M in front of it, it's metric. So you actually want to select M4. I don't know why it gave us M3, right? And we want, we're going to use 10 millimeter. And then we're going to use stainless steel. Lovely. Okay. For those of you who have used other CAD programs, you're going to be awed and amazed at how Onshape does this. I can now go through and select some holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I want to select, I want to get right on the edge of the hole and select the circle. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and if you look at, if I moved my mouse a little bit, you can see it's told me I've selected 4 things so far, and it's right there on the mouse. And I'm actually going to do, I'm going to do this hole. And I'm going to do the 4 outer holes again. And suddenly I've got 5+, all right? So I've selected all those holes, and all I have to do is hit insert, and it is going to drop all of those screws, and it's automatically mating them to those holes. It's super slick. It makes me happy. I tear up a little every time I do this. The other programs make you do each one individually. All right. So, and if I roll this under, I'm using my right mouse button still, and I can see that the screws are sticking through. You'll notice they didn't put the threads on here. It turns out that the way that Onshape works, threads are very computationally intense, and they really slow things down. So they tend not to use the threads. It's fine. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, well, we need nuts on this side, don't we? So I can go back over to ISO and I can say nuts. And we could use hex nuts, but we're actually going to use prevailing torque hex nuts. Their shape is very similar to what's called a nylock. So we're going to go with it. And then you're going to use, the component is a prevailing torque thin nut. All right. So I'm going to pause there for a sec so everybody can catch up. And once again, we're going to select all of the places that we want nuts. And where we actually want the nut is we'd actually like the nut to adjoin the hole, not the screw, but we want where the screw is going through the hole, because that's where it'll tighten down to. So I'm going to come to the bottom side here. I'm going to select that circle. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select that circle. I'm going to go do that to all of these. And there's those 2. And again, you end up using that right mouse button a lot, because you can just hold down the right mouse button and scroll things around so you can get access to it. All right. So I went and selected all the where those guys line up. And then I'm going to hit the insert button. And I will get all of my lock nuts. Lovely. Best thing ever. So go ahead and go try that and let me know how you did. Somebody's likely to click on something wrong. It's okay. It happens all the time. Let me know. Or give me a thumbs up when you're done. Thank you, Tom. Good job, Ben.
Is it okay if I just like kind of follow along? Because
Sure.
I can't really like watch and then do at the same time. So I'll just kind of get like a feel.
Okay, sounds great. Because
All right.
I'll be showing you the tutorials that you're going to do. We'll end up going through all this again. I just wanted to get you give you a feel for what it looked like. Whoops, we lost Cora. Oh, that's all right. Oh, she told me she was going to have to leave early. She has to go feed animals. All right. Hey, so team, we just assembled something. Okay. If we scroll out, there it is. That's like half a robot base. That's what it's like to assemble stuff. And it turns out you can download, these are all parts out of the Go Build a Kit. you'll find that you can download parts from most vendors. I'll show you that in just a sec. Okay, we're going to just, okay, so hopefully everybody is there, and I'm going to show you one other trick, which is up here next to your file name is a little menu thing. If you click down on that, you can set a whole bunch of things like the document, their properties. There's a bunch of stuff you can do. One of them, though, the important one is workspace units. If you click on that, this would allow you to change from inches to millimeters. And you can just swap back and forth depending on what you're doing. It turns out that the parts that we're using right here are metric. So I've just switched this over to millimeters for now. Go ahead and do that and hit the green check mark. So it was the document menu, workspace units, select millimeters. Okay. Thumbs up when you're done. Good. Tom's got it. Ben's got it. How you doing, Arjun? All right. So I'm thinking, hey, let's go measure a few things down here. We're going to build a little plate that's going to attach right here. And so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're gonna do those. So what I'd like to do is, well, first of all, I can scroll in on this thing. So I've scrolled way in, and I can actually come with nothing selected. I can come select this hole. And one of the things that you might notice is down here in the far right-hand corner, it's telling me what the diameter of that hole is. That's pretty useful. And actually, there's a little measuring tape thing here. And you can actually turn that on and it'll show you what it measured. It measured diameter and it's telling you the coordinates of it. Ooh, that might be interesting. The other thing I can do is I've got that one selected. I can actually come over here and I can see that now the measurement changed. It's telling me the distance and there it is, center distance, and it's highlighting that line right there. So those two holes are 32 millimeters apart. Okay. And I think I should be able to click off this. Okay, so I unselected everything. I'm going to click this hole and the hole up here at the top, and it's also 32 millimeters. So it's a 32 millimeter square. Go team. We're going to go make a part. So I'll close this little measuring thing. And I'm going to come over here to Part Studio 1. So I'm going to click off the assembly and we're going to go to Part Studio. And it'll end up looking like this. Okay. And we're going to start a sketch. So I'm going to draw a sketch. And so I'm just going to click on sketch up here. It's underneath the file name. And if you check out, it's asking you, please select a sketch plane. There are 3 defined planes when you first start a sketch. There's top, front, and right. And so there's sort of the 3 dimensions here. You can see them there. And so we'd like to use the top plane. So I could actually click on top here, or I can click on top over here. So here are the planes, by the way. And so I'll just click on top over here, and you can see it. The sketch plane is now the top plane. That's handy. And if I want to look at it in plan view, I can go over to our orientation cube and click on top. And now I'm looking straight down on it like it's a piece of paper. Okay, awesome. You'll notice that the menu bar up here has changed. There's some drawing stuff. I can draw lines, rectangles, circles, and you can go right down the list. And there's a bunch of other stuff. We're going to touch on a little bit of all of these. Okay, we're going to draw a rectangle, or a rectangle, but we're going to draw a center point rectangle. This one is currently called a corner point rectangle. But if I click on the down arrow, you can see that there are other rectangles we can draw. We're going to do a center point rectangle. So you should get that little icon right there. Okay. And so now I'm going to go over and see the dot in the middle of this thing. That is the origin. And I'm going to use that as my starting point. So when it highlights, I'm going to click it once with the left mouse button. And then I'm going to move this out. You don't have to drag, I don't think. You might be able to drag, but I didn't. And I'll come out here. And then I clicked one more time. So I left clicked once, and you can see now that there's a number down below, 50.523. That is, it's asking me for a dimension. Okay. So I can type in, I'm going to put a 40 in there. Okay. And so that defined that one dimension. And now it's moved to the other dimension, so I can put a 40 in there as well. Okay. Now, I oftentimes screw that up. So I will oftentimes hit enter or something and only get one dimension, or I might forget to do both of them. So if you missed a dimension, what you can do is there's a dimension tool. It's kind of in the middle. It's up here at the top. You can hit D for it if you want, and that'll do it as well. But you can come up here and turn that guy blue, and then I come down here and redimension this guy. Okay, and I can type in some number, and if I decide I want to change it, I can just come to that number, double click it, and change it back. Okay, so there we go, 40 millimeters. Sweet. Well, now I know I want a hole because we want to bolt this thing to something. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab myself a center point circle, and I'm come down here, sort of out here in the middle somewhere, and I'm going to click once and make it bigger. Something like that. And then I'm going to tell it I want it to be 4 millimeters. Okay. That wasn't so bad. Cool. Hey, I would now like to draw another circle. And so it's still in circle mode. So I'm going to come over to the right side here, draw another circle. And I think I want it to be 4 millimeters again. Cool. All right. So that's one way I can draw a circle. And I'm going to turn the circle mode off by just clicking on it one more time. So now we got nothing. And so I've got these circles here, but you'll notice that they can be moved around because they're not, I didn't tell them exactly where it's going to be. And so we have to give some parameters or some dimensions in order to do that, or something called a constraint. So we're going to start with some constraints. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one constraint. There's a set of constraints, and that's these guys over here. There's coincident and concentric and parallel and tangent and horizontal. We're going to start with a horizontal constraint. So I'm going to click on horizontal constraint. It's that horizontal line right there. And I'm going to tell the program that I would like the center of this circle. So I'm going to click on the center point to be horizontal with the center of this one. So now they will always stay horizontal to each other. So they will always have the same Y dimension. Okay. Sweet. That works nicely. So now I'd actually like to define the dimension, because we remember we measured earlier. So I'm going to do another dimension. I'm going to tell it that this, from this hole to this hole right here, we wanted that to be 32 millimeters, because that's how big the holes, how far apart the holes were on our part. So that works nicely. And symmetry is always your friend. That's why I like to start with a center point rectangle, because there's the planes here are also nice lines that you can use. So what I really want is I want these to be symmetric with respect to this. That means we want them to be equally far apart from that. So there's this symmetry guy way out here on the end. See where it says symmetric? If your screen isn't big enough, there may be a little drop-down menu that you have to use to find it, but I'm hoping you're good. So there's symmetry, and it wants me to start with what line do you want to be symmetric against? I want to be symmetric against this vertical line right here in the center. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to, we're going to now symmetry about this, and I can click on the center of that hole and the center of that hole, and you can see that they shifted over. And so the nice thing about, instead of putting in dimensions and stuff, by using symmetry, I can change the dimensions and things will always be symmetric. Sound good? All right. Now, another thing you could do is I would like the same two holes down here at the bottom. So I can also do something called a mirror. And so we're going to turn off symmetric, and I'm going to go over here. And this control up here is called a mirror control. So I'm going to hit the mirror control. And it's going to ask me for a mirror line. And what that means is that I'm going to select this horizontal line. So that means anything I select on one side of the line will get mirrored on the other side of the line. So I can now come and select this circle and this circle. And you can see they are just mirrors of this. And if I turn the mirror control off, right? So now if I take these guys and I move them, you can see that they're just mirrored across that line. But I can't move them left and right because they have to be 32 millimeters apart and symmetric across this. Good? Is everybody with me? Thumbs up if you got that. All right, sweet. So now what I want to do is I want to define a dimension. And I would like to have a dimension between that circle and the center of this circle. And I'm going to come out here and I can tell it that should be 32 millimeters. And notice what happens when I type that number in and hit enter. You'll notice that everything, all of these things went from blue to black. And that's something called fully constrained. And that means that those holes can no longer move willy-nilly. They are called fully constrained, so that they are now fixed. I can change things. I can come down here and change this dimension to say 16 millimeters, so they can still be moved, but they won't move by themselves. You have to intentionally change a dimension for them to work, okay? So there we go. There is our sketch. If you have this and life is good, then we're gonna hit the green check mark. And you will end up with a sketch. Here it is over here. And that's what the sketch looks like. And if I use my right mouse button and roll it, you can see it's just a two-dimensional sketch. Now we're gonna make it thick. So to make it thick, we do something called extruding. And so up here next to sketch is the extrude button. So I'm going to hit that. And it's asking me for faces and sketch regions to extrude. And so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to come down here and click on that. And you can see it got thick. We don't want it to be that thick. It defaults to 25 millimeters, about 1 inch. And so we actually want this thing to be about 4 millimeters. So I'm going to put in a 4 mm and it'll get thin on us. Look at that. Nice. And I'm going to hit green check mark. Okay. Some things this is awesome. We made us a part, right? And I can rotate it around. Got some mounting holes in it. Okay. And you'll notice over here in the features list, once you've done an extrude, you'll notice a part showed up down here. And this part we want to be able to name. I've ended up selecting things I didn't intend to select. So I'm going to go over to white space and click on it to stop that. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to part 1 and highlight it. And I'm going to right click it and we're going to rename it. And we're going to call it the cover. Okay, go do that. Rename that part. Another thing that you can do once you're done renaming it. So I right clicked it, did a rename. Okay, I'm going to right click it again and do an assign material. And there's a bunch of materials down here that you can choose from. A lot of times we just end up typing things in. We're going to use nylon. Why not? Nylon down here. What that does is it assigns a material to your part, so you now know its mass, how much it weighs and stuff. So every time I create a part, I rename it to something that is good and something identifiable. I define what material it's going to be made out of, okay? And I'll also oftentimes edit its appearance to assign it a visually somewhat accurate color. The nylon in my printer is mostly black, so I'm going to color this guy mostly black. So there we go. Everybody good? Got that far? Thumbs up if you're good. Now, a part oftentimes will end up with lots and lots of sketches and extrusions. Like, for example, what if we wanted to have a bump in the middle of our thing? Well, it turns out I can now do a new sketch and a new extrusion. So I'm going to do a new sketch. You can do this too, new sketch. And you're going to actually click on the top face of this part. See how it highlighted there? I'm going to click this, and you can see the face, the sketch plane is the face of extrude 1, and that's where I wanted it. Yay. And now I'm going to look at it from the top again. And so I'm drawing, this is a new sketch. And we're just going to draw a circle. I'm going to put a center point circle. I'm going to use that center point here. And we're going to drag something out and make it 20 millimeters. 20 millimeter circle right in the middle. And when I've done that, I'm going to hit the green check mark. And I now have another sketch, and I can do another extrusion. Okay. And I'm rotating this thing a little bit so you can see this. And it's asking me for the extrusion thing. So there we go. I just made a 25 millimeter tall hump on the top of that. Now you can see there's add. I can make a new part, by the way. I could add, which is the default, or I can even remove. And if I hit remove, you'll see it, instead of making an extrusion, it made a hole, right? So that's how I cut a hole in this thing. So that's pretty cool. So actually, I'm going to switch it back to add, and we're just going to add a 4 millimeter deep bump to the top so that we know what's the top and the bottom. Okay, so yours should end up looking like this now. We good? All right. Yay us, we have made a part. Now, the cool thing is that we can actually use this part. So now we're going to go back to assembly. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And we're going to do an insert. And we're going to go to current document. And you can see that we now have stuff in our part studio in the current document. And you can see why I named that the cover, because otherwise it would have been called part 1. And if you fail to name things, you'll end up with lots and lots of part 1s, and you're not sure exactly what that means. So always try and give it a nice descriptive name. Now I can insert this guy like this, bang. Okay, so I clicked there, left clicked there, and it's now inserted. Try that. And then when you're done, hit the green check mark. And I am now going to mount it to the end of this. So I'm going to do a fastened mate. And I'm going to select this end hole here, just like that. That mate connector. And I kind of roll this guy over. Again, you use that right mouse button a lot. And I'm going to go select this hole. Okay. And it looks like it disappeared, but if I scroll out, I can see it sitting up there. And I'm going to hit the green check mark. And there it is. It is attached. Okay. Cool. Beans. So we just made a part and attached it to our thing. We used a fasten mate, so it's not going to move around on us. Okay. It isn't as big as I was expecting it to be. So a lot of times that's a real common mistake, is that you missed a measurement or something. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, oh, well, I'd kind of like it to actually fill up the whole part. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to hover down to this corner, to that corner. I'm going to click that once. And I'm going to come over to the other corner and click that once. And I can look over here and see that it's 48 millimeters. Okay. So I think we made these 40 millimeters. So we kind of screwed that up on purpose, because I just wanted to show you that I can now go back to Part Studio. So click on Part Studio again, and I can change the base size of this by going to sketch number 1, and I'm going to double click sketch number 1. And I'm going to change the 40s down here to be 48s. Okay. And over here to make them 48s. And the beauty of doing all that symmetry stuff is I don't have to mess around with any of the other dimensions, right? Because they're all, we know we have a 32 millimeter bolt pattern stuff, okay? And now if I come up here and hit the green check mark, this part got bigger, but I didn't have to change too much. And actually, if you click on assembly 1 now, you'll see that that part is now correct size, full size, right? Sound good? So there you go. We just gave you a little sense of how the program sort of works, kind of when they're talking about part studios, you sort of get the idea that you can make a part in there and then go insert it in an assembly somewhere. We showed some standard content. We showed finding things in library files, because you'll end up using library files a lot when you're on a team. My team usually has a shared library where we put all the common stuff in, motors, wheels, stuff that we've already downloaded. It just makes it easier. Okay, cool. We got just a few minutes left, and I think what I'd like to show you now is, and by the way, you're welcome at any time to come back in and play with this file, do whatever you want with it. This team will last for a few weeks or maybe a couple of months, and it might go away at some point. So don't do your own important work in here, but we'll probably come back to this little assembly in the future sessions. Okay, so how do you learn all this stuff? It would take hours and hours in this format for me to go through and teach you how to use the program completely. Having said that, Onshape has really, really good tutorials, and you can access them up in the upper right-hand corner. Here is the Learning Center, and I'm going to click on there. And so in the Learning Center, it will, you're logged in, by the way, you have to be logged in to get at this, and it will remember what things you have done and not done. And they have, so Onshape, great company, big supporters of FIRST. They are trying to sell you stuff. They sell education products, they sell professional products, they sell training. Don't buy anything. So we're going with their lovely provided stuff. So under self-paced courses, you will find this thing called learning pathways. And if you look in here, they have a number of really well thought out learning pathways. We are going to do CAD for robotics competitions. Now, it has sorted my version of this by things that I've been playing with. So yours may not look different than this. What you're going to do is go to learning pathways, educator resources, CAD for robotics competitions. Okay, go ahead and do that. And it has a nice set of tutorials specifically for doing FTC, for doing FIRST. So if you go and you view the unit, it has it'll show you how to use the interface. It'll tell you a little bit more about how to use CAD and stuff. And then it has a bunch of projects. So if you go up here to CAD for Robotics, Intro to Onshape, it does a reasonably good job, and these are reasonably fast to do. So like navigating Onshape will open up this document, and you'll be able to go through here. It'll tell you about using the mouse controls. It'll tell you stuff that I didn't show you. So yay. And it has little practice things for you to do. So cool. I'm not going to delve into this because this is all pretty good at being self-directed. I'm going to back up one and that is the intro. Okay, hang on a sec. I got to back up one more, and then it has how to assemble a robot. And again, it has libraries that you can download a bunch of FTC parts. Really, the key thing here is to go through and figure out how to assemble stuff and how to download stuff. And a lot of cool stuff in here. I won't go purely into detail. You're going to end up reading all this stuff anyway. But that's where you find it, is in the learning paths. And then if you go all the way back up, if you finish that and would like more, under self-paced courses, they have a ton of stuff. Some of it is very specific. Some of it is you can learn how to use sheet metal parts, configurable parts. This is actually a very sophisticated program. The FTC lesson is basically there to get you started, but you can do all sorts of really, really cool things in Onshape that they take a while to learn. But there you go. CAD is really cool. People have heard me say this before, that there It's one of the things I love doing the most. It makes me happy. I CAD things all of the time. So that's a good way to learn all this stuff. And a lot of this is done, by the way, a lot of this is done in the form of rather short videos, for example. So some of these you have to pay for. You don't want those. You want Onshape fundamentals. Let's go just show you let's do this one. I think I may have done this one already. So they have little videos, and these videos are usually like a couple of minutes long, right? They're like a minute or two long. They sort of get you through the fundamentals of it, and then they usually have some nice lesson plans. None of these take a terribly long time. I think the longest one I did might have been a half hour, and it was really useful. So, okay. Everybody good? Any questions about this, about where to find? So it's in the Learning Center, self-paced learning, learning pathways, educator resources, and that's where you find the first one, okay? Or the robotics one. Questions? All right. Last thing I want to show you real quick is I did not draw these parts. I downloaded them. And so we're all going to go and download our first part. Very exciting. So what I'm going to have you do is bring up another browser window. And you can, let's just go to gobuilda.com. Okay. So this is the GoBuilda site. Andy Mark, Rev Robotics, GoBuilda, Actobotics, and ServoCity, they all have downloadable CAD files. So if you're ending up using one of their parts, you can download the CAD file. So for example, let's go grab a piece of structure. So I've gone to GoBuilda. I clicked on the structure. I'm going to click on channel. And I'm going to scroll down at low side channel. Why not? And so they have all these parts. And so we'll grab a 3-hole. This is a 3-hole channel. I'll click on it. And so they give you the specs. And you know, a lot of this stuff is useful. You can find out if you just wanted to know what the dimensions were or what the hole spacings were, all of that stuff. As you're learning the CAD stuff, you can start finding things really useful. Remember the 32 millimeters? Hey, there's that 32 millimeter number we were using. The holes are actually, looks like these holes are 16 millimeters apart, right? Yeah, whatever. So the other thing that you can find, if you scroll down a little while, is downloads. And the thing that you download for CAD is a thing called a step file. And sometimes abbreviated STP. Again, Rev Robotics, Andy Mark, all of these folks, if you find something that you're going to use, you normally can find one of these. So I'm going to click on this, and it is going to download a step file. And it did it. Okay, well, it did it, and it ended up opening up over on another window. I apologize about that. Okay, so it downloaded this step file and automatically opened it for me. And so this is the file that I want. At GoBuilda, they come down in zip files, so sometimes you have to extract them. So I'm extracting that file. There we go. So there's the extracted file. Okay. So I know that I have this in my downloads directory. Okay. So then what you do is you go back to your file here, and you could go down to the plus thing, and you can actually import something. And it brings up whatever directory you last used. I usually use the quick access and find downloads. And here is that file. Here's that folder, and there's that step file that we downloaded. So I'm going to click on that and do an open, and it's going to ask me some questions. Generally, I always combine into a single part studio. until you actually know what all this stuff does, that's your best move. For now, until you know better, create composite parts when importing multiple non-solid bodies. So combine single part studio and then do this composite thing. Your life will be better. Okay. So then I'll hit OK. And you can see it has uploaded from my computer up to there, and it'll translate it. If you have a really complicated part, it might take a minute or two for it to translate. But when you're done, you can now look down here and you can see that a new part studio has been created. And if I click on it, you will find that part. And so there it is. Okay. Usually the first thing I do when I import something is I will, if I'm okay with that name, since it's using its part number, I'm not too bad with the name, but I will go in here and I'll assign material because it doesn't come with the material assigned. And so I'll usually use 6061 is a very common form of aluminum. It's probably close enough if you don't know what the exact alloy is. Okay, so I'm going to call that aluminum. What that'll do is that will set the material's weight and center of gravity. And so if you just automatically do this when you're downloading a part, figure out how much what it's made of, if it's a part like this, or how much it weighs. That's a good thing. And then I'll also come in here and edit appearance. And I usually pick it for whatever reason, it picked this already. But I usually pick this silver color, and it's A5, A5, A5 is this number down here. I usually use that for aluminum. And so, and then all right, so now I've got that part, and now I can go do an insert, and look, that part is now here, and I can insert it right there. Okay. You can get wheels, you can get motors, you can get structural parts. That's how easy it is to bring in a part from one of the vendors. And that's how we did that, the assembly of that robot that I showed you at the beginning. Just for completeness, Andy Mark. So if you were to pick, say, an Andy Mark, well, let's see, let's go with a, we'll type in a never rest motor. So here's the classic never rest motor. Okay. And if I go down here at Andy Mark, you can find CAD documents, and there it is. There's that step file again. You can also get a layout. Go Build It. They don't really publish theirs, but Andy Mark does. And so Andy Mark's got a full drawing. So if you need to figure out what the bolt patterns and stuff are, so that when you're drawing your own, if you need to make your own holes and stuff, you can find all the dimensions there. Super common at all of our normal vendors. And you can download the step file. So I'm going to download this guy. I'm going to do one more upload here. I'm going to do an insert or import, and I need that. So we'll import this. And again, I'm going to do a combine into a single part studio and create a composite. There we go. And that'll import. And depending on how busy Onshape is, the translation may take a minute or so. Hey, it's done. Cool. So now you can see down here, I have a never rest classic motor. So there's a motor, right? And so you can go and collect up the stuff that you're planning to use on your team's robot, and use them in your models. And you don't have to sit down and intricately draw stuff out. Okay. Cool. All right. Who's got questions? So I invite you to go and play around with the Learning Center. Some of the tutorials are really awesome. You'll find in another one, they actually build a skateboard. The skateboard one's actually really cool. You get in there and do all sorts of really crazy things. But learning how to assemble things and learning how to draw and dimension and use the basics of the program are really, really cool. And again, the goal here is for you to be able to get a fairly accurate representation of what you're building, so that if you need to 3D print parts, or if you need to work together as a team to know what to build, you'll be able to do that. All right. So next week, I'll be doing this again on Tuesdays from 7 to 8:30, and we'll do another one on Wednesday from 6:30 to 8. It turns out that several people can't do Tuesdays, so I think they're going to be duplicate sessions of each other generally, to make sure that I give opportunity for those who can't join us. All right. Well, with that, thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you next week. My email address, oh, where are the slides? My email address, oh, where did my slide presentation go? There it is. If you need to get a hold of me, if you have any questions, it's kevinro@firstwa.org, and I will do my best to help you out. If these times don't work for you, email me and let me know. I'll figure out some other time to do it. I work with, this is what I do. I'm a volunteer, so, but I do this a lot and I enjoy doing it. So in future episodes, I guess, I'll probably have like 1 or 2 things to point out. And then if you want to bring whatever you're working on in, and if you need help trying to figure out how to make something work, or if you just can't get the dumb assembly to work, I've been doing this long enough. I know lots of good tricks and tips on how to get things to line up, and how to draw complicated things, because as things get more complex, you need a little bit more experience sometimes to figure out how to actually get a drawing to work. These are really, really powerful pieces of software that do just absolutely amazing things. But they all have a bit of a learning curve, and I've been through the learning curve on a lot of it. I am not an expert at this, but it turns out that we have real live experts. I know the people who wrote this program, and actually one of our mentors actually works for Onshape, not for our team, but one of the mentors in the Northwest works for Onshape, teaching Onshape to students just like you, and I would reach out to her in a heartbeat if there was something that I couldn't do for you. So there you go. All right, everybody. With that, I'm going to call it a night. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Have a good day.
and I'll see my team on Monday. Yay.